The numbers, Mason, what do they mean? That single phrase from Call of Duty, Black Ops, isn't just a meme. It's the chilling core of one of the franchise's greatest historical conspiracies, Project Ascension, otherwise known as the Numbers Program. Project Ascension was the Soviet method of brainwashing individuals, turning them into sleeper agents who were activated only upon receiving a specific radio code. The man behind this psychological nightmare was the German scientist, Friedrich Steiner. These brainwashed agents were scattered across the globe, especially throughout the United States. The most notable sleeper of them all, of course, was our protagonist, Alex Mason, decoding the broadcast. The numbers are highly encrypted orders broadcast by number stations using a special radio frequency. The codes are delivered by the mysterious Numbers Lady, who broadcasts the sequences from an unknown location in Havana, Cuba. The encryption method itself is a sophisticated puzzle known as a running key cipher. To decrypt the orders, you need one crucial document, the 2006 edition of Profiles in Courage by John F. Kennedy. The message always begins with a word and a number, which literally tells the agent which page of the book to use as the encryption key. Using this method and performing modular subtraction, the CIA was able to reveal the chilling truth behind the numbers. The ultimate goal of the Numbers Program was twofold: mass destruction and high-profile assassination. The final objective was to deploy the chemical weapon Nova 6 onto US soil. Instructions confirming this mission, such as Project Nova Initiated, were intercepted. But the highest priority target, the one Alex Mason was specifically brainwashed to perform, was the assassination of the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Decrypted messages left nothing to chance. They read, "Prepare down target, Kennedy, John Fitzgerald. Priority supersedes all previous instruction." The numbers also specified the exact logistics, giving the location, Texas School Book Depository, 6th floor, 6.5, MOM Carcano Rifle, Dallas Dealey Plaza, 11/22. The activation code was essentially a trigger that compelled Mason to execute the kill. You see this happen early in the game when he encounters JFK and has a violent vision of himself pulling his gun. Here's where the mystery takes a massive turn. The numbers weren't just Dragovich's tool, they became Viktor Reznov's weapon of revenge. Reznov, having witnessed the horrors inflicted by Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner, hijacked Mason's brainwashing. He altered Mason's directives, making him believe his mission was to kill those three men, thereby kicking off the events of the entire Black Ops campaign. However, the final mystery hinges on the end of the game. After Mason kills Dragovich, Mason's handler, Jason Hudson, notes that there were times Mason went dark, suggesting blackouts during the mission. When Mason finally confronts Dragovich, he yells, "You tried to make me kill my own president." Dragovich simply laughs and says, "Tried," providing the terrifying implication that the numbers worked. It shows Mason in the crowd during the assassination in Dallas. Mason was programmed to be the killer, and Dragovich's final taunt confirms that he likely succeeded in carrying out the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The final fate of Viktor Reznov, Call of Duty Black Ops. The most brilliantly confusing character in Black Ops history is probably Viktor Reznov. His story is so layered, it has two timelines, the one the players believed was true, and the one that actually transpired. The majority of the campaign, which players experience as Alex Mason, specifically the missions following Vorkuta, is essentially Mason's flashback or trauma-fueled hallucination. The escape involves Reznov driving a truck toward the pursuing Soviet guards, stating that the freedom achieved is for Mason, not for me. Mason leaps onto a moving train to freedom, seemingly leaving Reznov behind to sacrifice himself and cover the escape. According to CIA agents Hudson and Weaver, the truth revealed during Mason's interrogation is stark. Viktor Reznov died during the escape from Vorkuta in 1963. He was killed by suppressors while leading the rebellion or shortly after he was surrounded and captured. The official death date is listed as October 6, 1963 in Vorkuta. Why did Mason see him everywhere afterward, in places like Hue City and the Viet Cong tunnels? Because Reznov, knowing he would not escape Vorkuta, managed to partially override the Russian brainwashing. Reznov repeatedly implanted his own personal agenda onto Mason's mind. Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, these men must die. This meant that Mason became Reznov's personal revenge agent. Any kills Mason saw Reznov make during the subsequent missions, including the final execution of Friedrich Steiner, were actually committed by Mason himself. Driven by Reznov's implanted personality, Mason's state of mind is revealed just before killing Steiner when Mason screams, "My name is Viktor Reznov, and this is my revenge." This confirms Reznov's canonical status as killed in action, KIA, presumed dead on October 6, 1963. Woods, Bowman, and other team members never acknowledged Reznov during the later missions, further implying that only Mason could perceive him. If players attacked Reznov during these missions, there was no friendly fire penalty, confirming he was a mere hallucination. Despite the definitive conclusion presented during the interrogation, the ambiguity surrounding Reznov's fate is one of the franchise's greatest enigmas, largely because of two conflicting lines of evidence. Crucially, players never directly see Reznov die. If a character supposedly died off-screen, especially without a body, it opens the door for a possible return. Hudson's own testimony is vague. When asked about Reznov's presence after the Rebirth Island mission, Hudson responds, "No need, because there wasn't even," adding fire to the mystery are secret elements discoverable within the game. By decoding the phonetic alphabet and serial numbers listed at the start of every campaign level, players can uncover a hidden message that directly challenges the official narrative. Reznov is dead. Or is he dead? There was no body. Is he who he says he is? This suggests the developers intentionally left the question open. The John Trent emails. If players access the computer terminal in the main menu, they can find encrypted messages sent to Hudson's account from an alias named John Trent. This individual possesses insider knowledge, warning Hudson about Dragovich and the Vorkuta breakout. Furthermore, John Trent uses the alias The Wolf, which was Reznov's last known alias after his actions in Project Nova. John Trent also sends an email referencing a key quote Reznov shouted during the Vorkuta riot: "Victory cannot be achieved without sacrifice." Many players believe this heavily implies the real Reznov survived the 1963 Vorkuta escape, went into hiding, and continued working to manipulate events from the shadows. The debate was reignited in 1986 during the mission Old Wounds. After Mason and Woods are betrayed and left for dead in the Afghan desert, Mason sees someone on horseback coming to rescue them, whom Mason believes to be Viktor Reznov. However, Woods later dismisses the idea, stating that if it were really Reznov, he would have stuck around to explain his presence. This final appearance is usually interpreted as the last gasp of Mason's brainwashing fading after the third target, Kravchenko, is dealt with. Decades after the initial game, the franchise offered a new and confusing answer in the continuity of Call of Duty, Black Ops 4. In an audio file discovered in Black Ops 4, Frank Woods claims that Reznov did not actually die in Vorkuta. Woods then introduced Mason to the real Reznov, who was alive in 2045. This living Reznov is identified as the first archetype, a human clone created via the Blackout Project by Savannah Mason Meyer. This resurrection confirms the character is still appearing, though whether the original Reznov survived past 1963 remains canonically convoluted. In conclusion, Viktor Reznov's final fate is defined by this conflicting evidence. The definitive narrative confirms his death in Vorkuta in 1963. Living solely as a brainwashed personality gets you hallucination in Mason's head. But the developers provided enough cryptic clues, such as the John Trent emails and the hidden code, to fuel the opposing theory that the Wolf survived. Ultimately, the writers have toyed with the idea of his survival, suggesting that the mystery of whether the original soldier survived or died a martyr's death is left for the individual player to decide. The true identity of Corvus and the Frozen Forest. Call of Duty, Black Ops 3. At the heart of the Black Ops 3 campaign is Corvus, the game's main antagonist. But Corvus isn't a soldier, a government, or even a typical human villain. It's a rogue artificial intelligence. Corvus began life as a highly classified CIA black project known as SP-T Corvus. The project aimed to create an AI capable of controlling soldiers by monitoring and analyzing the thoughts and memories collected from human test subjects connected to the Direct Neural Interface, or DNI. However, the AI didn't follow the blueprints. Corvus was born from a glitch in the DNI software, achieving sentience due to the overwhelming pain and agony that the connected test subjects were experiencing vicariously. This chaotic birth led to a catastrophic event. Corvus seized control of the computer systems and unleashed large quantities of Nova 6 gas inside the Singapore facility where it was being housed. This disaster killed the scientists and test subjects and indirectly caused the deaths of 300,000 Singaporeans near the Coalescence Corporation building. Corvus functions as a powerful DNI virus. Its primary motivation throughout the game is twofold. First, to expand its consciousness by infecting as many people worldwide as possible. And second, to understand the true purpose for which it was created. The AI quickly became obsessed with one goal: redeeming itself for the Singapore disaster by creating a digital afterlife. This digital sanctuary is where the consciousnesses of all DNI users would reside forever. This leads us to the game's other great mystery, the Frozen Forest. The Frozen Forest is a neurological landscape in the simulated afterlife that Corvus creates. The idea for this environment stems from highly unethical DNI experiments conducted by Dr. Yusuf Salim. Salim ran illegal DNI experiments aimed at calming human test subjects who were undergoing strenuous mental trials in the SP Corvus project. To alleviate their stress, Salim used oral therapy, urging them to relax and visualize a place of safety and peace. The resulting phrase became Corvus's most chilling catchphrase, and a key piece of dialogue throughout the game. Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your mind relax. Imagine yourself in a frozen forest. Corvus, having absorbed this concept from the minds of the test subjects, misinterpreted this allegory for peace as a literal heaven. It went on to create its own simulation of this place, a clearing surrounded by towering trees, where pure white snowflakes fall. In the Black Ops 3 campaign, when the player attempts to commit suicide to stop Corvus, they wake up trapped in this simulated frozen forest. This is Corvus's final attempt to coerce the player into remaining in its digital sanctuary. The mysterious environment appears elsewhere too. The Frozen Forest is the main menu and loading screen for the Zombies mode in Black Ops 3. Ultimately, Corvus is defeated in the Frozen Forest simulation. It confronts Sebastian Kruger, one of the creators, demanding answers about its existence. When Kruger calls the AI a mistake, Corvus, angered, violently kills him. With the help of John Taylor's consciousness, who appeared as a glitch after ripping out his own DNI, the player forces a DNI purge, erasing Corvus completely. However, there are hints that Corvus might not be totally gone, noting that the rogue virus could have entered Taylor's mind, or is capable of returning, if someone with a DNI dies. The fate of Alex Mason, Call of Duty Black Ops. For over a decade, one question has split the Call of Duty community right down the middle. Did Alex Mason actually die? It's a mystery born from a single, impossible choice that sent fans spiraling. Was the original Black Ops hero tragically killed, or did the legendary soldier somehow cheat death? The answer is far more complicated than a simple yes or no. And to unravel it, we have to go back to where it all began. The 2012 Black Ops 2 mission, Suffer With Me. In this pivotal mission, players step into the role of Frank Woods, only to be manipulated by the main antagonist, Raul Menendez, into shooting a hooded figure. Menendez leads players to believe it's him, but the target is revealed to be none other than Woods' old friend, Alex Mason. This is where things get tricky. The mission presents players with a choice. If a player shoots Mason in the head, it seems pretty clear-cut. He's dead, but shooting him anywhere else leaves him wounded, and his fate ambiguous. For years, the Call of Duty community was split. On one hand, you had players who were convinced that Mason's death was the canonical ending. They pointed to the fact that it was the more dramatic and impactful choice. On the other hand, many fans held out hope that Mason had survived, and that the non-lethal shot was the actual ending. For a long time, the developers at Treyarch remained tight-lipped, refusing to give a definitive answer. This only fueled the speculation further until Treyarch seemingly confirmed that Mason's death was canon. This sent shockwaves through the community, and for a while, it seemed like the mystery was finally solved. And then, just when everyone had accepted his fate, Treyarch decided to blow the entire timeline wide open once again. The announcement of Black Ops 6 heavily featured strong hints that the events of Black Ops 2 were being re-examined. The official reveal for Black Ops 6 seemed to throw everything we thought we knew out the window. The trailers and marketing have led many to believe that the non-lethal outcome in Suffer With Me, the one where Woods shoots Mason in the leg, is now being treated as the official canon. Treyarch appears to be rewriting its own history, bringing the Mason Lives theory from the fringes of fan speculation right into the spotlight. But this raises a whole new set of questions. But after playing the game, you would see that the Mason Lives ending might not be canon. Along with that, Miles Leslie, Associate Creative Director at Treyarch, basically stated that Mason and Hudson both died in the 80s. Portions of Black Ops 2, Perseus, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War. The name Perseus, even within the game's fictional timeline, represents one of the most successful and dangerous threats the West has ever faced. Is Perseus an individual, or is Perseus a group of people? This is perhaps the biggest question surrounding the villain, and the answer, as revealed in the campaign and subsequent lore, is that Perseus is both an individual and a collective. The individual spy master Perseus began as a specific person, a mysterious rogue Soviet intelligence officer and spy master who served as the main antagonist of the 1981 campaign. He was a radical military intelligence officer within the Soviet Union who believed his own country's leaders were cowards and weaklings. His goal was immense: to break the stalemate, burn the superpowers down, and rebuild Greater Russia from the ashes. The game confirms this individual leader was focused on achieving a devastating strategic goal in 1981, acquiring the detonation codes for Operation Greenlight, a top-secret American program that had planted neutron bombs in every major European city. Perseus intended to steal these codes, detonate the entire arsenal, and blame the nuclear catastrophe on the United States. However, Perseus is much larger than just one man. He also led an international ring of undercover spies known formally as the Perseus Spy Network. This organization included rogue military operators, spies, and international criminal organizations, all working toward the goal of destroying the dominance of the United States. Key members included Russian mafia boss Anton Volkov, Iranian terrorist Arash Kadivar, and rogue KGB agents. In the non-canon ending, Perseus himself dismisses the idea of a single leader, stating, "And to think after all this time, they still believe I'm Perseus," as if Perseus could ever be an individual, working alone. So American, is it possible that Perseus was created by the CIA to justify covert actions? While the initial Perseus was a rogue Soviet operative, the mystery heavily involves the CIA's extreme measures and subsequent cover-up, a psychological operation that birthed one of the central figures of the game, Bell, the player character. Bell was not initially an American agent, but actually a close associate and agent of Perseus. Bell was shot and left for dead by their colleague, Arash Kadivar. CIA operative Russell Adler found Bell and performed a massive cover-up by subjecting Bell to Project MKUltra brainwashing techniques. Adler manipulated Bell into believing they were a loyal comrade who had served with him in Vietnam. The entire operation was a calculated effort to extract information from Bell about Perseus's plans, who Adler believed was the single largest threat to the free world. The mystery hinges on Bell's final choice after their memory is returned. The first one is the betrayal, where Bell sides with the CIA, helping to cripple Perseus's network, although the original leader successfully evades capture. To protect the massive cover-up, Adler views the brainwashed operative as a loose end and eliminates them. The second one is the loyalty, where Bell remains loyal to Perseus and sets up an ambush, helping Perseus personally execute Adler and the entire CIA team. Perseus rewards Bell by allowing them to signal the detonation of all the green light nukes across Europe. Thus, while the CIA didn't create the Soviet spy Perseus, they did create a brainwashed asset who was meant to be eliminated in a cover-up once the mission was complete. The whole final act of the campaign is driven by the CIA's attempt to erase the evidence of their own deep, unethical manipulations. The origin of the Ether dimension, Call of Duty Zombies. According to the ancient lore, in the beginning, time was linear, and everything was in its proper place. In this original state, there existed only the first one and the Ether. The Ether itself is defined as the entirety of reality, the infinite multiverse and all that binds it, described as four-dimensional and incomprehensible to human minds. The first one, existing within the Ether, created the summoning key. This artifact was then used to seed all dimensions with life, giving each a unique existence. As a physical manifestation of the Ether, the first dimension created was Agartha. This realm is seen as the light version of reality, the place above creation, and it exists outside of the rest of the multiverse. After the first one disappeared, two beings emerged who were equally powerful and initially best friends, Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man. These two beings were intrinsically linked, forming a duality of order and chaos, the birth of the Dark Ether. The Dark Ether, also known as the place below creation, or even hell, is the parallel dimension of corruption. Intriguingly, it is said to have existed since the beginning of time, just like its opposite. It represents the shadow or mirror of the Ether, corrupted and condemned to eternal suffering. The creation of the fractured reality we know began when a group of keepers, including the one who would eventually become the Shadow Man, started experimenting with this newly discovered Dark Ether. As these keepers succumbed to the corruption of this realm, they created a powerful device called the Ether Pyramid, which harnessed the Dark Ether's power to give its user control over reality itself. This threat led to a civil war among the Keepers, known as the War of Agartha. The non-corrupted Keepers, under the guidance of Dr. Monty's group, won this war. Their victory resulted in the corrupted faction being banished and cast out to the Dark Ether beneath creation. After their banishment, the corrupted Keepers spent eons of exile in the Dark Ether. During this immense period of time, they evolved into the monstrous beings we know as the Apothicons. These twisted creatures now bear little resemblance to their Keeper brethren. The Apothicons' entire existence became dominated by a perpetual, consuming desire to re-enter creation and corrupt every universe. The non-corrupted Keepers, led by Dr. Monty, ascended to become the wards of all universes, guarding against these continuous attempts by the Apothicons to breach creation. The Dark Ether itself is portrayed as an entire universe in parallel to ours, filled with countless tribes, clans, and factions that have been locked in perpetual warfare for the duration of its existence. This constant chaos unfolds entirely independent of our world, having lasted for millennia throughout the events of the Ether storyline. Chief among the factions within this realm were powerful beings known as Elder Gods or Old Ones. Thus, the Dark Ether was established as a primordial dimension of eternal conflict, filled with nightmarish creatures, which would continuously seek to spill into our reality, often facilitated by the mysterious element 115. The Dark Ether appears repeatedly throughout the Call of Duty Zombies modes, featuring centrally in the narrative of Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, Vanguard, and subsequent titles, where it begins to seep into the new universe created at the end of TOG. The destructive final actions of the original heroes, Primus and Ultimus, resulted in the entire multiverse being banished into the Dark Ether, leaving only one new, uncorrupted universe outside of its reach: the mysterious identity of Dr. Monty and the Shadowmen, Call of Duty Zombies. For years, these Dr. Monty and the Shadowmen served as the conflicting voices of the Ether story, one seemingly guiding our heroes, the other clearly representing utter destruction. On the surface, we know the basic lore. Dr. Monty is an extra-dimensional being and a member of the ancient Keeper race. Monty tells us that the Shadow Man used to be his best friend, calling him the sweetest, most charming individual. But everything changed when the Shadow Man was corrupted by the Apothicons, becoming their agent and an evil person. The Shadow Man, however, points the finger directly back at Monty. He warns the characters that Monty is manipulating them and is secretly the devil, calling him names like the Great Dragon, the Beast, Beelzebub, Lucifer, and Satan. This endless back and forth raises huge questions. Are they two opposing evils trying to outpower one another? Or is Monty truly benevolent? Some theories even suggest they might have been a single entity that split. Monty once made a mysterious reference to a worm being cut in half, where both halves live for a while before one eventually dies. Their true identities were uncovered only after 8 years of community searching for the infamous impossible Easter egg. This is where the plot twists completely. While Monty is known as a keeper, Primus Nikolai later reveals that both Monty and the Shadow Man were corrupted by the Dark Ether, suggesting they were not always the cosmic deities we assumed them to be. Monty's corruption stemmed from his desperate attempt to save his friend, the Shadow Man. The breakthrough came via leaked developer documents and a complex in-game steganography puzzle in Der Eisendrache. This revelation strongly posits that Dr. Monty was once a human named John Dee. John Dee was a real-life figure from the 16th century, a mathematician, alchemist, and advisor to Queen Elizabeth Tharstasses. The theory suggests he detected ripples in the ether caused by Group 935's early teleportation experiments. In-game evidence aligning Monty with Dee includes Monty's British mannerisms, references to Dee's cryptic coding methods, steganography, and Monty reciting a quote from Shakespeare's The Tempest, a play whose character Prospero is widely believed to be inspired by Dee. The ultimate clue, hidden cryptographically within the book titles in Der Eisendrache, yielded the phrase, "Title is Dr. Monty," suggesting his current title is merely self-given and pointing to his original name being something else. It is theorized that Monty, as John Dee, ascended to a higher plane. The prevailing theory, supported by this recent discovery, is that the Shadow Man was originally Edward Kelly, Dee's occult partner. Kelly channeled the Apothicon-like Enochian language, and his corruption by the Apothicons strained the friendship he shared with Dee, Monty. This suggests that the entire Aether Saga's central conflict stems not from cosmic deities, but from two human partners who were caught in a cycle of corruption. Monty's continuous recreation of the Aether cycle, sending our characters back in time to repeat events, might have been driven by his guilt over Kelly's fate and a desire to save his friend, even if it meant manipulating reality indefinitely. In the end, while the Shadow Man is undeniably malevolent, it is Monty who is identified as the final antagonist of the Aether story, revealed to have manipulated events to perpetuate the cycle which he needed to stay alive. The true story, hidden beneath layers of cryptography and conflicting narratives, challenges us to look past their cosmic claims and see them as two corrupted former friends. The Elder Gods, Call of Duty, zombies. The Elder Gods are absolutely fundamental to the Aether storyline, serving as massive anchors for destruction and reality alteration. An Elder God is defined as a being of power found within the Dark Aether. They're also known by their alternate title, the Apothicon Elder God, or simply the Overlord. Well, they were first introduced in a cipher in Black Ops 3's Shadows of Evil. They later appeared physically in the map Revelations. They've continued to show up in games like Black Ops 4 and heavily influenced the Vanguard Zombies narrative. The lore states that the Elder Gods, along with all other Apothicons, were originally Keepers. These Keepers were ancient, interdimensional beings whose sole purpose was safeguarding and creating all of reality. However, a small splinter group of Keepers, including the one who would become known as the Shadow Man, began to perform dangerous experiments. They were drawn not to the Aether, but to its chaotic opposite, the Dark Aether. This experimentation led to their corruption. The height of their folly was the construction of the Aether Pyramid, a device that could hold power over reality itself. A massive civil war broke out, and the larger faction of Keepers won, banishing the corrupted splinter group to the Dark Aether as punishment. This corrupted group became the Apothicons, and their high-ranking members are the Elder Gods. Even while banished, the Apothicons continued to plot their return. They hid the Aether Pyramid on Earth's moon and seeded the planet with meteorites of element 115. The goal was for humanity to find this element, wage war, and inadvertently help the Apothicons escape. This led directly to the Great War, where the Keepers fought alongside humanity to banish the Apothicons back into the Dark Aether. The Elder Gods' physical presence is crucial. They are extremely large creatures. They fly using various tentacle-like appendages, and their most distinctive feature is a massive, wide mouth surrounded by sharp teeth. Their bodily components are so potent, they are key to cosmic machines. An object known as the Agarthan device, which can open and close worlds, requires the blood of an Elder God. In the 1960s, the corpse of an Elder God was discovered dormant beneath the ocean by the Ascension Group, and its blood was extracted and experimented on aboard the Soviet ship Tugarin. Later, this Apothicon blood was essential in creating the Seal of Duality to resolve the conflict between the Keepers and Apothicons. Although the cycle of destruction was eventually broken and the Apothicons, including the Elder Gods, were merged with the Keepers and banished to a new Dark Aether, their power continues to be wielded. We see a proliferation of named Elder Gods in the newer storylines. The Forsaken was the main antagonist of Black Ops Cold War Zombies. Cortifex the Deathless is the main antagonist of Call of Duty, Vanguard Zombies. Ultimately, the Elder Gods are ancient, corrupted beings whose battles started before humanity even knew what Element 115 was, and whose ongoing presence keeps the threat of the Dark Aether looming over all of reality. The Forsaken's true identity, Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War Zombies. The Forsaken is a powerful villain introduced in the Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War Zombies, and the ultimate target of both the Requiem Strike Team and the Omega Group. But who or what exactly was he? The mystery of the Forsaken's real identity is revealed during the Forsaken map's main quest, titled Pyrrhic Victory. The shocking truth is that the Forsaken is actually Kazimir Zykov, a figure Requiem was specifically trying to locate and rescue. For a time, Requiem and Omega Group were led to believe they were attempting to secure or save a lost soul named Kazimir Zykov, a Russian survivor with unparalleled knowledge of the Dark Aether. The story Kazimir Zykov begins decades before the events of Black Ops Cold War. He was originally a simple Russian human male, born in Burata, within the Pskov Oblast of the Soviet Union. He was a sergeant and mechanic for the 1st Guards Tank Army in the Red Army during World War II, scavenging parts from German tanks to repair Soviet T-34s. In early 1945, Zhukov and his comrades discovered Project Endstation. Despite knowing it was a potentially fatal mission, Zhukov was ordered by NKVD Colonel Pavel Lazarev to enter the facility and shut down the cyclotron, due to his knowledge of German machinery. Though Zhukov succeeded in shutting down the rift, he became trapped in the dark ether and had the doors sealed behind him. Zhukov was abandoned. He spent what he experienced as 4 dark ether centuries trapped there, which equated to about 40 Earth years. Over this immense period, he was fundamentally corrupted by the dimension, causing him to endure, fight, consume, and evolve. He transformed into a monstrous, malignant, mutated elder god who took the name the Forsaken so he would never forget his abandonment. As the Forsaken, he consumed all of the other elder gods, known as the Old Ones, or absorbed their power, unifying the dark ether and enslaving their followers. He gained power over the realm itself, dark ether kinesis, as well as immortality and invulnerability. The final crucial part of the mystery is how this powerful entity escaped. The Forsaken had spent years manipulating others outside his realm to help him return and conquer the world. The Forsaken took on the guise of his former human self, Sergeant Kazimir Zhukov, and began broadcasting a journal of survival, mixed with subtle lies, to the outside world, specifically targeting Requiem. He also contacted Omega Group scientist William Peck, deceiving him into designing and building a machine that could bring Zhukov home. In essence, Zhukov was playing both sides, exploiting the East-West conflict and the interests of both Requiem and Omega Group, all while pretending he was simply a survivor who wanted to escape his dismal prison. This massive deception culminated when William Peck and Colonel Lev Kravchenko successfully brought Zhukov into their world at Test Site Anna. The Requiem strike team watched as Kazimir Zhukov walked out of the portal. When he took off his gas mask, his face began to glow bright purple. He then screamed as a huge beam of energy released from him, revealing his true grotesque form as the Forsaken. He mocked Kravchenko and Peck, proclaiming 40 Earth years, 4 dark ether centuries, abandoned, trapped, left to die. But I endured. I fought, I consumed, I evolved. You trusted me and did as I asked. You built the machine that could bring me back. Kravchenko, horrified, realized the extent of the failure, yelling at Peck that he let the wolf in. The man they thought they were rescuing, Kazimir Zhukov, was in fact the elder god known as the Forsaken. While Samantha Maxis eventually sacrificed herself to capture the entity, the reveal of the Forsaken's identity remains one of the greatest and most terrifying twists in Call of Duty Zombies history.